It's okay. I can officially say that you can watch Harem in a Labyrinth in Another World on Crunchyroll and be just fine, because there really isn't nothing to censor in this episode. I don't know. They could have found something to censor out of that episode, but it really just a dungeon crawling episode. Technically, well, there was technically one scene at the very beginning, but this episode was kind of three-parter. We had this first segment where it was all about like this possible future. Then we had some dungeon crawling, and then we had this whole kind of re-stirring up the idea of bandits. But I felt it was like a really nice balance, and technically we're getting a lot of insight into what makes Meikyuu special. Now, I would argue not really explaining anything, but at the same time, do we really want to have it? It's one of those conundrums, like, I kind of want to know what we're doing here, but at the same time, do I really want an information dump at this point? But solid episode overall. I actually really did enjoy this episode. Like I said, at the very beginning, we're seeing a possible future where Meikyuu, along with his gigantic harem of girls that he's apparently bought, comes through a teleportation into the starting village that he first showed up in this world at. Now, the oddity that kind of came from this whole scene was that we're obviously pointing out the fact that here's this big harem that he's eventually going to get. Obviously, these are all these girls that we see in the OP, so these are probably girls over time he's going to acquire. But additionally, having him sort of nostalgic to the starting point of his journey. Now, the odd thing that happened here is as he's kind of walking around and going, oh, there's the barn, there's that horse, it might be the same horse, oh, this is where I stole those sandals, and oh, this is where I first woke up, and this is where I got Durandal. But additionally, pointing out a random kid that was in the fields that he's like, oh, that boy has black hair, that's odd, you don't normally see black-haired children in this world. And even though one of the girls behind him, I guess they could have had just maybe a darker shade because of the time of day, but yeah, anyways, this kid has dark hair, so obviously he's Japanese, because obviously we always equate black hair to Japanese in all anime. But yes, very quickly identifies the kid as being the child of Meikyuu and Mio. So he goes, oh yeah, Mio. And then like cuts to some random scene where he's going at it with some girl in the village apparently. So he apparently knows her mom, so very well knows her mom. But again, that's that whole idea is like, okay, is he gonna be coming back to the village at some point and making his way with Mio, or is this a sign that we missed a scene at some point in episode 1? But either way, it really does feel like I'm very curious. I might end up asking my brother, because he's read like quite a bit of this series, but I'll be very curious at this point if this scene isn't in the source material. Like, this whole scene was their way of realizing, you know, we're probably never going to get as far enough in the source material to get to these girls. Let's just have an excuse to show where Meikyuu goes. Like, let's show way in the future what Meikyuu is going to become. And yes, what he's going to leave behind in this world, obviously. But it was a little bit troubling, the idea that he's like, oh yeah, that's my son. Yeah, I know. I know her father. Or I know this child's father. Here, kid, have this sword. Protect your mom. Peace out, kid. It's like doesn't really tell me that I like this character anymore. Like my levels of liking Meikyuu just went all the way down. Like, oh yeah, okay. Well, I get the idea of him going around just like getting with a bunch of random women, but leaving a bunch of children fatherless is, yeah, this makes me like this main character. Like I said before, it almost feels as if they're doing this, adapting this, just to give us an idea of where Meikyuu will end up being eventually in the source material, but it doesn't give me a good viewpoint of Meikyuu whatsoever. Like, this makes me think that he's a dirtbag. Like, I no longer like this main character. But again, this is a vision of a possible future, so he could possibly not do that. But anyway, to the next section of the entire discussion, we kind of have this moment where he's realizing, do I go labyrinth hunting like Alan's telling me, or do I just do bounties? Bounties seem like it's a lot of money. But Alan's like, you know, you probably don't want to do that because, you know, bandits don't like to be caught. So eventually, if you keep catching people, they're going to target you. So you're no longer going to be the bounty hunter. You're going to be the hunted. So he's like, probably stick with Labyrinth. So he ends up going to the Labyrinths. And this is, like I said before, where we're starting to get a lot of insight into what Meikyuu can do, but not necessarily what he can do, I guess. He picks up Durandal. He's like, this is a little bit flashy. I really like this sword, but, and then he does like reset. And then he gives, the sword disappears. So my assumption is that he's putting the sword away, but he's resetting the skills on it before he does that. Not necessarily that doing a skill reset gets rid of it. But this is equal when he goes to buy weapons. He wants to get like a normal weapon to carry around, and he buys a weapon that has a skill slot. But he knows the shop owner can't see that. Like, they're all the same price, but this one has a skill slot. So he quickly buys that because the shop owner doesn't know. And it implies later on that he essentially applied a bargaining skill upon the weapon itself and used that to get cheaper pricing. So he's able to put like a bargaining of 30% pricing on a weapon. He used that later when he turns in all these twigs. It allows him to get more money out of it, and yes, technically save money whenever he barters with people, which I think is kind of cool. So it does seem like this episode is implying that Meikyuu does have a unique skill. Besides being able to see cards, besides being able to see like stats of things, he's also able to skill reset, or at least apply skills to things and remove skills from things. But additionally, as he finally goes to the dungeon, he's also showing that he can change classes, he can change jobs, and yes, he's acquiring jobs as he goes along that can have unique skills. Which, like I said before, it doesn't explain it, but at the same time, I guess I can gather what we're doing here, which is fine. I mean, if it's simple enough that I don't need an explanation, that's fine. I'll just kind of gather it as I go along. But I do know the whole skill reset aspect was something that my brother was saying is kind of a key thing that Meikyuu has. Additionally, the other thing he kind of noted, and I kind of agree already, is that Durando, even though it's like super overpowered sword, like we're already kind of overpowering Meikyuu. He's already seen to be overpowered because he has this sword. But at least at this point, he's really kind of hitting heavy on the idea that, yes, I'm only surviving because of this sword. I'm not overpowered. He's quickly losing an MP. Every skill he uses drains his MP. And technically the only reason he's surviving from dying is because it's absorbing health and he's able to get back up on his feet. So it's at least acknowledging that Meikyuu is not overpowered. But at the same time, he does have a unique ability to adapt to situations with his skill reset, and this sword's keeping him alive for now. But additionally, it's kind of hinting at this idea that when he does try to push himself a little bit further, he gets smacked down. He goes in the secret room, and we pretty much have like a Sword Art Online moment where he goes in the secret room and gets trapped in there and pretty much almost dead. But it's interesting, like all the unique skills that he has are kind of interesting. Like he has Overwhelming, which allows him to basically speed himself up, slow things down. But again, immediately drains his MP, so he goes into this state of depression. Like he realizes, I thought it was odd. Like I thought it was like this thing where because he was speeding up time so much, it was giving him time to think, and he was overthinking things to the point where he became like depressed. But no, he kind of explains it later on after he teleports. Oh, this is because my MP's falling to 0, and apparently in this world, when that happens, you kind of become like downed, like you're just depressed. One of the things I really enjoyed about this whole segment, though, was the idea of, and I only laugh at this because I've done it, that idea that you can get like a certain farming spot in a game, like this is too difficult, but if I stay here, I'm kind of good, like I can eventually get to something. And you start to calculate, like if I kill this thing, I get one of these things, I can sell that for this much. So if I can just work on this many per hour, I'll get this much, and then I can buy what I want to buy. I've totally done that. I've totally calculated out what I need to kill in order to go to the village and buy everything that I need from the village, like all the upgrades in that village. I need to make sure that I kill this many of these mobs. So I got a little bit of a kick out of that just from experience. Though I wasn't buying Roxanne. That's the only difference there, is I wasn't buying Roxanne, I was buying weapons. So with this added skill with the reset, I do kind of wonder, applying my theories on the first episode around what this whole shtick is going to be for this series. Like I said, he's technically, obviously, going to eventually buy these girls. And again, is he going to be able to apply skills to them? Will he be able to apply maybe jobs to them, apply skills to them? Because he's able to do it to weapons. You would kind of think, again, this sounds terrible, but again, this is this world. I'm not saying it's a good thing. He has ownership of a weapon, and he's able to apply things to it. So the assumption in the game world that we're dealing with here, or gamey world, is that he would be able to acquire a person and be able to apply things to them as well. And that's where I'm thinking it's probably going to end up going, because it's already kind of laying the foundations now. And that could technically be what makes him really special. One thing I did technically take note of is that besides Roxanne, there was only 2 of the girls that were with him in the future snapshot that had the same sort of collar with chain, like that typical symbol of forced servitude. The other ones, one of them had a collar, it was like a cat girl. All she had was really just a collar. And the other one just had sort of it looked like more of a necklace, but she was an elf. So it could be something that's more magical, a magical collar. I don't know, but something to note. Again, I don't technically think we're going to get into that stuff unless they keep flashing forward. And again, that being actually something to do with the storyline, not something they're just inserting with this adaptation. And yes, the final segment of this episode was him returning back to the village. And everybody was looking at this bandit that was dead on the ground, noting the fact that his hand was cut off because his ID card would not come out to be turned in for the bounty. And they're noting that this dude left. Like, this is a bandit that has returned to the village, which is odd. That this guy is a part of a bandit group that left the village. Like, maybe they had a turf war and they lost and they left, or they're returning to try to retake their turf. But additionally, kind of noting the idea that they could be returning to get revenge on somebody, which Meikyuu immediately realized, oh yeah, that's right. They could be from the group that I took out, and they could be looking for me. But either way, this kind of strikes in Meikyuu this idea of, oh yeah, I don't think I have a choice. Like, if I want to get Roxanne, I don't have much time left. I need to do bounties. And this is kind of getting that weird area. Like, I don't know if they'll ever really address this, but is there a scent of obsession here? Does Meikyuu have an obsession with acquiring Roxanne? Or is this one of those things where it's a build-up? Okay, so he first meets Alan. Alan goes, you like her? You can have her. And that's like that thing, again, the salesman aspect, that Alan planted the seed in Meikyuu's mind that I can have that, and she's kind of perfect for me. Like, I want that. And at the same time, she's okay with whatever I want to do. But is it one of those things where at that point he just became obsessed with, I need to buy this girl? Or is it one of those things where over time, because he started the process, that eventually he's like, no matter what, I'm going to finish this. Like, it's gotten to his mind. It's seeded into his mind that I've gone this far, I might as well finish. Like, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Why? Why the obsession is the question mark. And like I said, I'm curious if they'll ever address it. Are they ever going to address Meikyuu becoming just obsessed with having these girls? Is it going to address the idea that, again, he just got caught up in it and he just wants to finish it? Is it going to get into him just being one of those completionists? Like, I have to finish something once I started it. It really does beg the question. Like, he's obsessed. Like, it really does feel like he is obsessed with getting Roxanne. And I don't know if it's just, it would imply based on the little brief shots that they get of Roxanne at the very beginning that I just want her. Like, he just wants her. Like, he's obsessed. He thinks that she's beautiful and this is this perfect girl that he wants. But at the same time, to go so far as I'm going to put my life in danger and hunt down bandits seems to be a stretch. Like, he's finally crossing over from I'm just getting twigs and I'll eventually get enough money to get it, to I will put my life in danger because I want her that bad. Again, I'll be curious. I'll be curious if it'll ever address that. But anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 2 of Harem in a Labyrinth in Another World. I didn't really think I'd have this much to talk about with this show, but again, this episode was kind of interesting. We got into some skills, we got into some future stuff, and again, we're kind of getting into the mind of Meikyuu, possibly. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button, comment, let me know what you thought of the episode. Do you think of my theories of Meikyuu being a little bit crazy? Subscribe to the channel if you've not already so you can get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support us more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. I appreciate everybody that considers, and y'all take care.